It's my pleasure to be here. And now I started the presentation with this video because we couldn't get high definition working on that one, on that projector. So I cannot do a live demo in high definition. And so this video more or less makes you feel what it should be looking like. And now I tell you about the philosophy of the product. It's all about the dynamics and understanding of complex data changes. What I was fascinated by was to create a system that could translate complex data into images so that we don't have to read. And the other thing is, like, I would like to use technology so that I'm aware of what's going on, but I'm not disturbed. I cannot stand anymore, alarms and SMSs or any type of incoming signals telling me, oh, this variable has changed, this variable has changed. So I don't think that that's fair, and that's treating like humans as data slaves, so that you sit in front of computers and the machines keep bothering you, bugging you that something has changed and I have to do something. Maybe, because sometimes, most of the time, we receive even information that doesn't require any action, so it's just disturbing. This is like the cover of a magazine that came out in July, and I really liked. Actually, I did present at the Swiss Stock Exchange the system, and just after a month, this cover came out. And it's very nice because I saw that suddenly we start having journalists envisioning metaphors to describe the stock market. And this metaphor actually is even better than the system that I will show you, because it really positions even the viewer inside the submarine, looking out, getting the idea that the ocean is stormy, getting the idea that, it's maybe dangerous, but he lost even the sensation that he's not even touching the water anymore. And this is interesting because sometimes, especially when we deal with massive amount of data streams, we have the perception that we are in control, but we have so many inputs that maybe sometimes we lose completely the big picture. This is an objective image of a big picture. What BASHI does is trying to do the same with company data. We create business climates. Business climates should be metaphors like this one that makes you perceive what's going on in this moment. And it should be very objective. So that's why the use of the ocean, the sky, the clouds, because humans have developed this skill to understand weather in an instant without cognitive effort. So if we map change to a weather scenario, we, without thinking, we sort of absorb so many variables in an instant, and we can just feel what's going on. That's the other thing that pushed me to use metaphors or visual metaphors, is like, I didn't know, but then I discovered that we really have our short-term memory can manage more or less 7 to 8 numbers. And this limit is something that we never think about. If you talk to a trader, he says, I know every number that is on the screen. I know everything. That's our perception, because in reality, if you ask him to write down the numbers he knows, he can't. He will stop after number 8. So, but the perception is that we are in control. But it's not true. And since I'm partially Italian, we tend to do things that are sort of beautiful to look at. So even if they are not meaningful. This time, I tried to do something, to combine really this field of art and the field of business. And it's creating, shaping up into an intelligent way of having walls that are artistic, beautiful, reminding of oil paintings, and at the same time informative. The other thing that was of interest to me was the creation of new proportions between us humans and the buildings surrounding us, and a new proportion between the big trends and the workspace. There are things that we are not in control of. There are things that we can focus all our attention on data, but still there are some major trends that we cannot really follow. So the big trends, the big influencing trends that are beyond our control should be on the walls. This way, when I think about my reality, I'm still aware of what's going on around me. How it works is somehow simple. It requires people to decide for for instance, a Bloomberg screen, which variables are relevant to them. There has to be some priority that has to go through it, because in order to build a meaningful language, we have to define which ones are the vital variables and which ones are less important, and allocate more percentage power to the relevant ones. Then, what we can do is to start mapping the existing variables to a data metaphor. This is a simple example. This is like a BASHI web service. That's the first step into animating a metaphor. The philosophical approach has been simple in the sense that we started dividing from Aristotle. We started taking the basic elements. So we have air, water, fire, and earth, just to start in the vertical columns. And then we connect stocks or indexes or volatility indexes to a sensitivity range. So we say the wind is influenced by UBS, and is UBS in real time in this case, or UBS compared to yesterday's close. And then we set a sensitivity range that allows me to sort of say, I'm interested in -2%, +2%. That's the type of evidence in the wind that I want to see. Then we can add some elements of random. We can add absolute. We can add some other elements in here to enrich the metaphor to the customer needs. And then imagine this. Imagine that we have a beautiful day, almost no clouds, and UBS starts to fall. Well, that could generate a trigger, a vector of change, meaning wind might pick up. Wind picks up, and I start seeing that, yeah, there are a few clouds, but they're moving very fast. And the wind, then even the ocean comes up. And I'm saying, what is going on? And there is also ocean speed, which is connected to another variable. So also the SMI is falling. So suddenly, from a very simple data mapping, I start perceiving that is a moment of change. And sometimes in life, you don't have to trade or work every moment. Sometimes you have to be there at the right time. Being there at the right time is very difficult to sense when is a good moment. But if you would trade options, or if you're really connected, you sort of develop a skill whereby you know that if that the volatility is going up, markets are falling, then maybe it's a good moment to do this. So these systems somehow prepare an environment whereby the guy is managing an hedge fund, or this could be web server data, or this could be a mix between Google Analytics and KPIs, Google share price, which today could be a bad day. But combined in an image, it gives me a sensation of what's going on. And it's not necessarily reading, this is not for reading chart, but this is for reading change. And reading change through the periphery of our attention, so without focal awareness. I don't need to focus here. I don't need to touch a cloud to read a number, because the single variables should be read through your work environment. So if you really need to know how many people are visiting your website right now, that is perfect, the Google Analytics. That is perfect. If you want to play historical values, Gapminder is great. If you want to sense right now a complex image or complex variables and get an image or a business climate, this is the type of tools you rather have to use. You can't use Gapminder to connect to the areas of brains that you're not using, because that's the other part. This goes in the direction that I'm speaking to you, but I could have dogs licking my feet at the same time, and that would not bother me, because I could still continue. That would be still in a direction that I would be listening to the radio, I'm talking to you, and so this is the type of software that BASHI does. It's the type of software that is not really for your focal awareness. I'm intrigued by using the extra capacity that we have in our brains to absorb information without effort. So basically, I try to talk to other senses. I try to use other skills that people have so that they can work less. When we map the data, after that, we put them in context. So if I see that the image is cut off here, but if we have New York or Mumbai, we have the moon phases, day and night cycles, star position that match the one of the location where the data are coming from. So if I'm absorbing data about India, and I'm right now here, it's night, we have the full moon, and then when I start the software, you'll see how it works, which moon phase there is in India, for instance. And if we have New York, it's still daylight. And the resulting image is really like the objective is really to reduce this cognitive load that the type of work environments we develop, the type of work environments that most people have in most companies are not respectful of the skills that the people might have and are not empowering them to become more autonomous. Imagine this. If you have a call center, no windows, it could be a room like this one. The people usually are there. They have to pick up the phone under a certain time limit. Above 3 rings, it's bad quality. But the bad quality is not coming in real time. The bad quality signals is like the manager coming down after 3 weeks and screaming and saying, yeah, we have to do faster. Or we have simple alarms on the screen saying, we have to do. What I like is to envision an office space where you remove the middle management. And the phone operators have these virtual windows. In the virtual windows, there is a climate. It's the climate that we share, and it's the climate of our performance. This climate of the performance is the indicator that if we do well, there will be beauty and there will be the sun. If we start doing mistakes or the quality of our service goes down, snow is being generated in real time, particles per second, wind, storm, clouds, become a gray environment. So we are basically even aesthetically punishment. There is an aesthetic punishment for not performing well, but which is more subtle, but it allows us to react. So this system works well in companies that want to do well. These systems could work well in companies that want to be transparent, because you need really to be an ethical company to say, I put the KPIs, I put my performance there. This is my team, and this is how we are doing. And if someone comes in and there are problems, they are there. The advantage of using a metaphor is that the problems are not written there on the screen. So maybe outside of the company, people will not understand how we map the data. But internal to the company, fourth floor, management floor, we could sense what's going on. And we know that if this color of the sky is turning to this sepia color, we know what is the sign. And maybe employees don't. Maybe we could even have, the metaphor could be up to a level that the more you go up in the hierarchy, the more you can read. And the lower you go, the less you know. You understand just waves and clouds. This is a typical setup that, that in a sense, field change, office of the future, environments where we can sit and think. Because one of the things that is not pleasant is when you are in a meeting and the guy is always distracted. Or I've got investments and I'm losing money and I want to see my Reuters screens or Bloomberg. So with my mind, I would be somewhere else. If we can take the variables that are relevant to us, we put them in an environment, we put them in a role, through a metaphor, and the weather is not changing, the wind is constant, the clouds are there, the ocean looks like that. And during the meeting, with the peripheral, I noticed that there is not a big change. It means that the data are constant. There hasn't been change. And that is a very important information. Absence of change confirms that I'm not missing anything. If during the meeting I start seeing that the wind picks up, I might be more alert. And if the sky turns gray, I have to say, sorry, let's do a 5 minutes break. I go to the other side, I look my Bloomberg, and then I come back. But these systems are more like naturally informing humans of the moment that might require your attention. And then you might change the room or take a short break. It's more elegant, it's more understandable than being mentally not present while you're having a conversation. I'll show you now, this is like the proposal made to the Swiss Stock Exchange 4 weeks ago. I presented and offered, this is the entrance of the Swiss Stock Exchange. They have like a huge screen that's presenting just this sequence of stock market data. And there is this beautiful hole just next to it. And I said, you would need, You're the perfect example of a company that could profit from a new communication instrument. Put a data metaphor or the data on the left, on the right. This way, people entering the building get the mood. But what is interesting in this case is that this could be a generic meaning of the metaphor. It doesn't have to be the one that is super sophisticated. It doesn't have to be the one that is transformative for the company where you mix KPIs and everything. This could be for generic use and for communication purposes, meaning I inform people of what the Swiss stock, how the Swiss market index is doing. This way, even people passing by are illuminated by the data and get a sense, even during the day and night. When the market is closed, this metaphor continues working. So with the same forces that were at the closing. So at the end, even if the stock exchange is closed, but people are passing by, still this information is flowing. And you have got like this building illuminating outside, which is very interesting because it's like a communication statement. We are a Swiss stock exchange, we deal with technology, we transport data, and we inform people. We could even inform people that can't read very well. We could even inform people that, that are not into the stock market. I had a professor that went to school from Gilbert Prost. He was the professor of my professor, and that guy I didn't know, but wrote this sentence, and it was, when I read it, I said, this is exactly the type of work I'm working on. Good visualization integrates the natural world, the technical world, the use of natural intuition, spatial cues, and perception. This is exactly the field I'm moving in. This is the field where, we try to reposition us as the man and the information environment through metaphors that help us in absorbing and being aware without being disturbed. This is a short video. Just again, this way, when you'll turn on the system, you will get an idea. Up there are like the name of the office. And because there's probably a recording for YouTube, they'll scale down so you cannot see, but you have the time, which is a vital component because every office top right there is the time of the location, and meaning when I flip and I go to Tokyo in Japan, you got the moon and stars and repositioning very fast. Now I'm really going pretty fast here. So this is like Singapore, Shanghai, Milano. Okay, Milano Miptel. If we stay here, Zurich, Hong Kong. This is like the next button because I'm the administrator, so I was recording myself. Okay, if we stay here, this is European, so it's night. Actually, I have the screen. This is midnight 11, meaning the moon is up in the sky. It's in Zurich. Every office has latitude and longitude. And this gives you a sort of, okay, now I move to digital air. It will be 6:10 in New York. And the sun is up, the market is closed, but the forces are still there. It was a good day there. And now we move to NASDAQ, which was not a positive day, so we start having the snow particles. This is just to show you quickly, like how, and when we move from one office to the other, we have this wind blowing, because I have to clean the atmosphere from the particles of the previous office. Because if I generate clouds and snow, and I'm in New York, and then I go to India, these particles are still there. So basically, I have to blow them away so that we enter a fresh atmosphere in the next office. I'll show you then some, just to broaden the brainstorming session that we could have afterward. Is like, what kind of variables can you map here? You can have risk indicator, performance indicator. This is like portfolio language, portfolio management, like value at risk, value at growth, KPIs, or historical. The point is, like, if you imagine that this is a 3D space, and we have like the islands that are very far. We've got the ocean that is bothering me with the wind and the snow. But already an island that is like distant from me. That island could be representative of historical, could be representative of the past. If the island is green, maybe it has been a good year. If the island is made of rock, maybe it has been a bad year. So I'm not saying that this is limiting the purpose is to feel change, but that doesn't mean that in the picture, in the 3D environment, you can still have traces of historical values, reference points. Because especially when you navigate, it's sort of a good feeling to have some reference points in a 3D environment. It could remind me, if you imagine the shape of the island or the size, that could be very easily the market cap of the company. Maybe that is UBS. Maybe UBS is made of rock now. And maybe UBS is getting smaller. So you will have a sinking iceberg instead of a, but I'm just using, but it's just to trigger the imagination that these type of metaphors might be very useful when, for instance, if you're managing risk, if you want to know what is your exposure, if you're an insurance. Usually, these companies used to pay externals to develop, like at year end, you give the annual report, these are my numbers, or this is my risk exposure. Can you do a metaphor? And and usually you do a job that is like a design of icebergs, and you have a boat, and then you print it, it's big, and you sell it. And they hang it, and they say, okay, in reality, this was my position last year. And they're happy. Or they kind of even print from a 3D printer, a moment in time. What BASHI is trying to do is like to do this in real time. I mean, that is the interest of this work. Is like I would like companies to sense what's going on and to be connected to the bottom. Because if you meet, the more you go up in a company, sometimes you have a beautiful life at the top floor, but you sort of lose the connection with what is going on down below. And down below, usually there are customers. Down below, there are the people using your website. There are many layers, and you paid all the others to take care of the guys down below. If they are not doing the job, they will not tell you. Especially in banks, people get fat bonuses at the end of the year or at the end of the quarter if they do a good job. They are the last one that will inform the boss that something went bad. They hide it because they lose the bonus, so they can't pay the mortgage. So in most of the companies, there is an incentive in good performance, and there is, so the skill of hiding problems is valuable. And this goes up to the level of the CEO. The skill of hiding and moving to a different job and leaving the dead bodies in the closet that nobody has seen is the skill that some people have. In the US, there are laws, and then people end up in jail. In Europe, a bit less. But new companies, the companies that react in real time, especially companies like in this field. I mean, you were born with real-time data. You know how many people are on the server. You know how many. The company like this one, maybe there is hope that these type of companies will have the right culture for saying, I want to have my data there. I want to know what's going on. I'm Steve Jobs sitting in my office, and I've got this glass cube for me, and I've got like what's going on in sales of the new iPhone July 11th in real time, but not as numbers, as climates. And I've got the climate for the US, I've got the climate for Europe, I've got the climate for Asia. Do I need more climates? Well, in the future, yes. Why? Because if now I'm perceiving real time, a year from now, what I would be interested in is to even measure like sales right now compared to sales last year, sales right now compared to sales same day of last week, and then we start having multiple levels. Then we start having the real time now, and then maybe some historical panoramas, which are measuring now compared to last year or now compared to last week, same day. And this way, I start getting a sense of all the data that we have, we collect, everyone puts the data in the system, it's in the SAP, whatever, but nobody's really expecting to use them. There are many companies that collect tons of data that pay externals to manage the Oracle that then will take care and is remotely managed from another company to make sure that everything works. Yes, but then they output a chart. They output like 3 lines. 3 lines out of, I don't know how many terabytes of data. 3 lines out of normal data that we studied in business school. Most of the times we can't even imagine which data are relevant. Suddenly, we are not up to we have a problem in imagining that a climate of data, that we mix the share price, the sales of the iPhone in real time, gives me a sense of what's going on from the top down below. We include the market, the response time of the web server, some KPIs and everything, and this guy sitting in front of a MIDI controller will just tune and give more importance to the iPhone sales and less to the, and at the end he has his own climate. So this would be luxury solutions, imaginary offices of the future where we use the data and we play with them and we look how they look. We want to see, if I give more importance to the iPhone, how does the weather change? And maybe it was a bad choice. And then, so the idea of tuning even, data feeds, the idea of playing with them, the idea of visualizing through data metaphors is very appealing. But today, it's still an age where we kind of draw the line between what is considered reality and what is considered projection. I think these are interesting times because these projections sometimes are very useful. Because when we look at data or numbers, changing numbers, we tell ourselves a story. We interpret, if I have $1,000 and I invested them, and suddenly the stock market starts going down, I've got $800, and it goes 810. I kind of feel happy. I can stay for more because it's, I feel like it's going up. Then it's 790, and 791. This from 790 to 791 makes me happy, but I tend not to look, and I tend not to cry from 850 to 800. So we are like pathological beings as humans that when things go bad, we tell us our story, oh, it will change. I've got higher chances now that it will go up again. But this is like the same as being in Las Vegas and playing. I lost 5 times. Well, this time I'm sure that I can play everything. I got higher chance, and we tell ourselves stories. That's why the sad aspect in the business environment is like reality is the numbers, and the numbers are the one that we interpret the way writers or artists would interpret them. We tell us the stories. And when we look at the reality that is like built objectively in a 3D environment like BASHI Panorama does, we tend to say, but that is, what if the cloud, was wrong and going the wrong direction? What if the wind, I want to check the number behind that cloud. And that is exactly what the people I've met, they want to enter the cloud to make sure that the cloud is the cloud. And it's already a good sign, because a year ago, they wanted to have the graph in the ocean. So that, and if I want to look at I want to make sure that, this idea that we want to make sure, the number could be fake. That's the sad aspect. The number, could be done. And they miscalculated that number. And we need numbers. What I'm saying is that we have a need now not to be scared and also put the numbers on the walls and see what's going on in real time. And when this is happening, we stimulate our intuition and we start looking in the right direction on our screens. Because the problem is, through these metaphors, I can more or less perceive where to look. Might be right or wrong. You don't have to read the cloud. You don't have to have the graph in the ocean. But what you have to do is like, shit, there is something that doesn't pay attention here. There is something that's not working properly. Let me figure it out. Let me look at my screens and figure it out. So the use would be to control, inform, and react. I mean, this is like the office of the future should be, some offices, not everyone. Most jobs maybe don't require this. But the people that deal with real-time and dangerous situation, or they want to know, well, they should go through a sort of setup like this one. There is no space for lying. There is no space for hiding information, because it's vital for the performance of the success. I show you the original concept. This is the drawing that inspired the work when it was like more or less clear what had to be done. And this is like, you have data, which for me, the stock market is a good example of random data, because it's impossible to follow. And we have no idea on the dynamics. We just have price tunnels, more or less. But it's not helping, because today could be a different day, and it opens at a different value. So So let's call that random. And the other thing that is bothering is that it flickers at random. There is no rhythm there. So I said, if we take the data from the stock market, let's find this Aristotelian metaphor and map them to the laws of nature in a simplified way. Let's give them dynamics that we would have in nature. So if you have like physical formulas that drive waves, for instance, they can add this dynamic effect to two variables that were at random. So movement from the stock market was connected to natural laws that give a sense of where are we going, at what speed, in which direction. But beyond the graph, because it becomes more elastic, the system. And the last thing was what Red also perceived when they saw my work, to move from nodes to what Stockhausen painted. He envisioned, said, no, I have to write music, and I want to use the different floors. So he did the step from here to there, and I said, and I want to do the same. I want to go from there to there. Suddenly, I want to give I want to use the third dimension. I want to use the depth, and I want to really do what he did with the music, so that we can have a different height, different people playing different instruments, because there is a meaning for that. I said, we have to do this for the stock market so that we can feel and perceive a complex environment, but through new glasses. Just because I've heard that many of you are engineers, and I just wrote like how one cloud is described, just because most people ask, but how many variables? Is it like a Tamagotchi, like happy and good and bad weather? No, it's unfortunately the direction has been to build an organic environment. The direction has been from the beginning to do something very complex, that it will look different every day, because the goal would be that this should be permanent display of change, something that you buy, it's expensive, but you leave it there forever as a concept. The concept that we get used to sense data from these walls, we get used to this metaphor, and so every day should look different. The same way your reality looks different every day. It's always a beautiful day, but the sun is slightly more orange today. So we wanted to have that aspect of nature, that aspect of organic. So there are many more variables than the ones that probably businesses need. But the beauty here is that if one day you say, I would like to influence the shape of cumulus clouds, well, with this system, at least we can say, OK, let's connect that variable to this aspect of the cloud. So the beginning is simple. What we have shown was, in a way, a simple way of mapping the ocean waves, the speed, because it's what is very visible. But the beauty is we can go even subtle and define things that are really good and beautiful. So this is the video that was showing when you entered. I just run it for a few seconds, and then I'll try to start the simulation with a laptop machine, which is not the same. But in this case, I'm using like a Logitech Air mouse, because I kind of like the idea that you move in the air something, and just to make sure that what's going on in the rest of the planet. And so this is me trying out the system, basically. So it was a bad day, particles. Today it should be worse. So I'll turn on the system. It requires like, the latest Nvidia cars. It's the gaming machine, the type of Alienware type of machines, because there are a high requirement for bandwidth, 3D bandwidth, and so. There is no audio, right? Oh, it's OK. OK. I'll leave it for, how much time do I have left, more or less? 10 minutes, more or less. OK. So what I'll do is just, so here you see the wind blowing, etc. But let's stop, and I'll try to run the software on an Nvidia card that is on a laptop. So, I mean, it's not the same as usually the price of the gaming Nvidia card is the same as the price of this laptop. but it's still a recent card with 512 megabytes of RAM. So here I'll try to connect through the internet, through the stock data, and we'll see. Probably the first offices are the offices of friends of mine that are testing the system. And the frames per second, it can't be high on this type of machines. So I apologize. So now let me do, these are like test environments. So what I'm doing, and you're cut out and you can't see the time. But so you're seeing even a portion of the screen. But maybe, let me change this full screen so that you can see more. Because I think the time sort of saying, but I want you just to perceive like how the system just visually how it should be worked. This okay, the Switzerland, it's 1143. This is my control thing. Down below you have got the variables. I can ask to the server, what kind of mapping does this office have? And now, in this simple mapping, which is the type of mapping that you show when you start, when you want people to understand what's going on. And it's the first step. So basically, everything is linked to the SMI index compared to the previous day. So SMI -1 for me is today compared to yesterday. It's very simple. And it's a bad day. Credit Suisse lost 1.96 francs. UBS almost 1, and the SMI was down 131 points. Resulting image, it's a it's a stormy environment, and so if you look up, I'm showing you that these snowflakes falling because one of the things that are also interesting is to have multiple projections with multiple machines so that you have the front and the roof covered, so you start seeing the snow falling before it's in the screen. That is kind of touchy or emotionally touchy. Yeah. So now we go to another office. DAX, same time. So for a bad day. This is like Dow Jones real time. This is different. It could be good and could be bad weather. I tell you why. This is a friend of mine. He has like, it's a horrible day. But it's not bad, this office. But I have to tell you the story. This person was not interested by like the Dow Jones compared to yesterday or whatever. He cares about when do we have swing points? When is the market changing? So this was tuned for him just to he cares about, well, it's a bad day, but maybe now we have touched the bottom and it's coming up. So he wants just to use this to feel when it's a moment that there has been a change in the big trend. So it could be good weather, even if it is a bad day, but it's a special office. I'm just going through some of the offices that we play with. This is Nasdaq, and then you see that waves are pretty high and it's bumpy, lost 80 points. So let me see. There are also some glow special effects here. So then we have Japan, which is 6:46 is the morning. Then we go to Singapore. Singapore was also so the sun and the stars usually readjust. So that's why you see planets moving, because they get the feed, like I have to go to the new position. Now let me just, this is just to show you that this okay. This is just to show you like how the system was built. That is really 3D. Is not like Milan, horrible day. And then what I'll do is that I'll try to load, since I would like also, if you're interested to have a discussion, I'll load some scenarios, or just to show you like more possibilities, but aesthetic possibilities, so that we can imagine even different scenarios that are beyond the stock exchange. So let's say that this is a, let's go full screen without numbers here. Full screen, no ticker, change. Okay, so I show you just like how I see, like simple changes, but a small problem could result in like that the ocean looks weird. So what I'm saying is, the point here is not to be the electronic arts of, it's not that everything has to look cool. The point here is like, there is something wrong in the data. Well, it's beautiful, yeah, but the waves there are kind of simplified. Maybe I have to check, maybe I have to look. And it's not, so it's I kind of like this idea that is not, the opportunity is not to impress people with the aesthetics. The opportunity here is to discover if, if in this image the horizon is trying to tell me something. And the horizon is one of the indicators that I really like. Because it could be very visible suddenly. It could be, I'm getting closer to the islands. The horizon becomes very energetic. What does that mean? And like, just to tell you like some of the particularities of the system. If the sun is so powerful, it's glowing up with lights, the clouds, okay. Are the clouds covering the sun? Becomes a primal indicator in this system, because if the clouds are not blocking the sunlight, or if the clouds are semi-transparent, all this is telling me something. It looks a bit surrealistic, and it's easy to tune, but I'm just saying what we saw before were the first step, the first metaphors that they very remind of a natural environment and so on. But I think it is also fascinating at the same time to come up with languages that go beyond, and go beyond even, so that once we play with this system, once we define, we could go even, increase and trigger a point where more, it goes beyond nature. And that is like a bit a limit, but I think in some offices, with some people, this could be a possibility. And now I think we go back into the office space, so the climate will be more natural. Yeah. I would say that I can more or less end here. We have like 5 to 10 minutes. If you would like to discuss, or I welcome any feedback or anything.
I have a question just about picking those metaphors.
Mm-hmm.
So I say also, I'm going to probably overinterpret everything I see about the ocean, the color, the movement, and everything else.
Yeah.
My wife, on the other hand, hates being out in a boat, and those little waves that you thought were friendly, she would probably feel seasick seeing them.
Yes.
And the clouds would depend on where you are. An overcast sky here in California is fine, and it might mean rain back where you come from.
Yeah.
So how can you pick some kind of a universal metaphor?
Well, we have to, this is interesting, because, it happened to me too, that I find the person that had a boat accident, in the audience I had. And of course, the sea at night for that guy is a scary image. But the point is, that's why when it's like stock market metaphor, it's calm. It's a calm technology. Today, it looks a bit shaky because we don't have enough frames per second. But it's fluid. You will not get scared because it will be images like that, and it will not be alarming because they will not move the way you think that, suddenly, everything changes. Here it's like a constant display of change that it's smooth. So it's smooth but perceivable. So the goal here was not to do the special effects. The special effects are there if you need them. Because some people ask for the special effects. Some people say, I want the lightning, or I want the... But that is not exactly the purpose. The alarms is not this. This is more like an ambient thing that should be beautiful in the sense like a privileged virtual window. In high definition, smooth, clean, but also meaningful. And the idea of the metaphor, we can discuss eternally, and if you really don't like, if you feel seasick because you have these screens, well, we shouldn't, we should either change the office or shut down the screen. I cannot, but the point is that it's totally cross-cultural. I agree that some people might like the snow, but if we all agree in this room that snow is beautiful, let's say that when it's snowing, it's a beautiful day, fine. Because as far as the system is concerned, it's adding a minus to the logic. So a short seller today is a happy day. So a short seller is a flag for me in the system, because for every mapping, I can just reverse the logic. So for me, we could define what is a good day. And a good day could be a snowy, calm motion, or you could say, we don't want to see, we are seasick, we don't like the ocean, so the maximum waves are like this. And so you tune a system, but you cannot go as far as saying, we don't like nature. So nobody, we have to agree at the bottom that more or less a landscape. It could be sand, it could be the ocean. We might have all problems with individual experiences, but we cannot go as far that the sun is bad or evil, or the moon. There are some things that as humans we can tend to, we cope with. So we could simplify the language up to a level that we can easily cope with, and we don't, damage anybody. But let me add, because I met he was Japanese, and he said, I don't like the the ocean, but I like fishes and I like the aquarium. Yes, but the aquarium, and he said, inside you can have coral that changes color, and that tells me a lot. And I said, yes, but the dynamics of the data that you can have in a system like this one, like you can have tall waves that are going in slow motion. That tells me things that you cannot have in the aquarium in a way. So these systems with particles and components that attract each other start to communicate to humans, to us today, in a way that we can do very sophisticated communication, because we can start playing even with speed of movement, and that is really something that I can catch your attention, and you say, and then you look there, and then you look there, and that is what is interesting, is when you spot something that you were not thinking about, that is, becomes. And the last thing that I want to say regarding the clouds is 10,000 years ago, me and you, we would be scared of seeing a cloud. We would run away probably, because maybe we would think, shit, what have we done? Because the cloud is moving, maybe it's following us. We would have developed no skill of understanding and anticipating what would happen, and we would be scared of the weather. Today, we more or less, the weather is a given thing that more or less we know how to behave or respond to weather condition. Extreme weather conditions are not welcome, no problem. No problem. For me, as a matter of fact, in the luxury installations type of thing would be defining, the boundaries of the installation. The goal is not, it's not for gaming. It's not meant to go and shoot. It's meant really to have the bottom line is to give the ocean view to the guys that don't have it. Because if we start complaining that something beautiful, could cause problems, I think that we have worse thing to worry. Especially, I've been in offices in Boston now that are really sad places, really sad environments. And now we are discussing that, if we have a beautiful view on the ocean that is a bit artificial, maybe someone will be seasick. But this is, you see, that I encountered many reactions, and I understand it. But we should have in the absence of the privilege of having a beautiful view, the idea of having a beautiful virtual view in high definition meaning a double resolution what we're running now, fluid, well, actually, somehow it could make us even feel better, meaning the opposite of feeling sick or seasick.
It seems to me that when we are paying attention to the weather, there's a lot of guessing and a lot of subtlety. So how would you know when something changed enough to a high enough degree to where it would be something that you would want to reference? And would you have to memorize like what elements?
Okay, I get it. That's the approach of.
That's my question.
Yeah. So that your expectation now, because like we just did the demonstration now, we looked at it, and you expect the book with the images, like if the sky is like this, it means this. If the sky is like this, if the ocean, somehow you expect a reference. The point is like, if you would have it, the skill of developing the language is so fast that you cannot believe it. But I'm not saying I'm not a sales guy, so it's not that I'm trying to emphasize, no, it's great. No, but the DFL, I have this hedge fund company. I installed it because I was coming from the US for 3-4 weeks. I said, okay, I gave it to you so that you can play with it and you tell me what you think. Well, but I know the guy. I know that he's using already the brain. He's not just a logical thinker. He can do many things. So I was intrigued by the person. Well, I placed the installation in his office. He went already beyond in 8 minutes when he was sitting in front of this. He envisioned this. I was talking about volatility. He said, okay, if I see this, I would like to have short-term volatility mapped here, medium-term there, higher-term there. And if I said, I would like also to have maybe gold, Standard and Poor. Suddenly, this guy was, he kind of saw this, and he developed immediately sort of a sense of what he would be interested in, and the images that he was capable of, like the way he would map and use this, were more sophisticated, I have to admit, that what I was imagining, even a good use of such a system. And it's very simple. It's very simple. But you understand that it's simple once you have it in a way, that you map your data. We have a system that we can read Excel now, for instance, because not to get into troubles, I say, okay, why don't you map, can you come, because the beginning of the discussion, can you come up with 8 variables that are relevant to your life, that change, constantly, or that you would like to monitor through a metaphor? Because maybe you are not there. Maybe, your variables are not, if you can put, numbers that update in Excel automatically, let's say even 8, we can start, or 5, or 1, or, if there are components in your life that are real time, and you would like to start influencing a system like this one, we can start discussing. And it could be Excel, the first interface to this 3D system. And if you start seeing your numbers in here, if you start defining the sensitivity of your numbers, so since the ocean doesn't have to move much, this is the maximum. If not, it's flat. If you start, when I give you the tool, in a sense that you are in charge, then your approach to the system will change. Because then you start smiling and you start saying, okay. And then you get new ideas. So more or less, I'm not Bloomberg, so I cannot tell you, no problem, here is the book. Here is my review of the financial language. Here is how it looks. And there are 10 possibilities. Because that's what a big company does. And if I tell you how I map the financial markets, you would say, but that guy, you would not take even my mapping as solid. You take the mapping solid from a huge company usually that has a brand and say, this is the book of the metaphor of the financial market mapped to this. So what I'm saying that we shouldn't be scared. It's very simple. What you see here is very simple. It's very human. And if you start using your data, it becomes meaningful fast. If you look at the data of others, it could be as boring as, and useless. So there has to be the interest of being informed, and the data here should be relevant to you. And if it is only for you and not for the team, it should be a private installation for your office in a way. In an open space, is for we agree on what is relevant, and we agree. And the last thing, I saw that there were some screens at the entrance. Imagine the big screen at the entrance of Google. Imagine that this is like also monitoring the attacks to your servers. I'm just making this up. And it starts snowing, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and there are the cleaning personnel in here. Well, you can tell the cleaning personnel, if you start seeing snow, a lot of snow, and if it's windy and if the ocean is wavy, give me a call. You will never tell a cleaning personnel, log into SAP and check if the variable is like 15, because if it is above 21, we got a problem. So what I'm saying is, like, if we start putting things on the walls through a metaphor, suddenly maybe you can manage the BlackBerry, maybe you can manage everything, but the people working with you, maybe they have more problems than you in keeping the big picture. These things are useful for having the big picture. These things are useful for saying, if the islands are green, get more stocks. If there are different islands and the icebergs are there, maybe it's time to sell stuff. You can tell it to a junior guy. But he would feel more like better in performing your, or helping you in your business because it's very visual.
Thank you.
Hey, no problem. Thank you.